The Bible teaches men how to build generational wealth. First, let's establish the definition of generational wealth from a biblically sovereign man's perspective. Generational wealth is the transfer of ownership, wisdom, and covenant from one generation to the next, so that your children's children can live in freedom, purpose, and obedience to Yahweh without starting from zero. Yahweh's ultimate design for us is ownership and freedom, not permanent leverage against our name. And I can tell you where we see this. One of the first things that God tells us is be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion. Now, what does it mean to have dominion? Dominion is to have authority over. So that poses the question, how can you have dominion if you're also in debt? So I got curious about debt, and it took me to Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7, and it says, the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Now that's interesting, because if the rich rules over the poor, then that tells me that the people with resources have control and authority over the people that they lend to. But we just talked about the definition of a dominion, and dominion means to have authority over, and the people who are lending are the ones who have authority over the one who is borrowing. And then it goes, and the borrower is servant to the lender. So I researched borrower, and by definition, it means that you're binded to someone through debt. And because of that, you become a servant, meaning that you're under the authority of the person who lended that to you. So what that tells me is if you want to build generational wealth the kingdom way, but you had to borrow in order to get it, it means you're always going to be under the thumb and the rule of the person who gave it to you. And it's the direct opposite of dominion and true freedom, which is what Yahweh said that we should have. So that brings me to a point. If I'm not going to borrow to get ahead, then I must need to have patience. So what does the Bible say about patience? Right here in Proverbs 21, verse 5 says, the plans of the diligent lead surely to plenty, but those of everyone who is hasty surely to poverty. Here's another. Proverbs chapter 24, verse 27 says, prepare your work outside, make it fit for yourself in the field, and afterwards build your house. Why do I bring this all up, bro? Because steady endurance, patience, working towards the goal, it's going to lead you to true biblical generational wealth, true biblical sovereignty, which we talked about is ownership and freedom that's passed down to your family and not under the thumb of someone through the midst of borrowing. Remember, you're passing down ownership, land, businesses, assets that produce income, wisdom, which is biblical instruction, and covenant, which is faith and values that keeps your family aligned to God. When you're walking in freedom, purpose, and obedience, you have the ability to do that uninterrupted